100 questions about writing in 5 minutes or less. Let's get to it. Question 15. What was the least favourite part of your publishing journey? So I'm a traditionally published fantasy author. The least favourite part had to be before I got that first book deal. When I started trying to get traditionally published, so therefore trying to get an agent to begin with, it was difficult to get any kind of feedback. The internet was not what it was as it is today, with groups and support and editorial support from people you can hire. None of that kind of stuff existed. And you had to send in your submission through the post. You couldn't even do it through email. And then you had to wait months with no kind of information about if they were reading it, when they get back to you, or anything like that. That was the toughest part, because every time you got a rejection, there was no way to know why. You didn't get any feedback on it. It was more a case of a standard postcard would come through the post with printed and just kind of written your name in with, your book isn't right for us this time. I know that a lot of agents these days do not have time to provide that feedback to individuals because they have thousands more submissions than they were getting at that time. And yes, there are more agents today than there were back then, and there are a lot more in different genres like fantasy that I represent. There are a lot of agents that look after science fiction, fantasy, or speculative fiction as they call it. But getting feedback from them is still the most difficult, because quite often they don't have the time to tell you what didn't work for them. It could be something with the book, it could be something to do with the timing and the market, it could be that their personal taste is just not right for the book and therefore they don't feel able to champion it and represent it. But you can now get feedback from other sources today, which I couldn't back in the day. When you finally finish a book, when you've written it, edited it, had friends read it, go over and over and over again, and you've polished it so many times and you're thinking, right, now it's ready to send out to literary agents. It can feel very tempting to just blast it to as many of the agents as you can. If you've got a list of say 20 and say, right, I'm going to send it all 20 and just go for it and see what happens, and this is my moment. It's very tempting to do that, but I always say, send it to a small handful and see what happens. See if you get any feedback. See if any kind of notes, themes, anything comes back. And if all 5 reject you, then I would then take another look at it. I'd get maybe some support from someone. It could be editorial. It could be a new friend who hasn't read the book to give you some feedback. It could be a trusted someone within the publishing space, like a published author, to read the book and give you their feedback on it. But I'd get some more feedback rather than just send it out to the next batch. Also, with a bit of distance and time away from the book, coming to read it fresh again, you may be able to see it with some fresh eyes. You may get some feedback from the agents, but it might not be a few small things. And anything that they can give you to then revise the book better before you send it on to the next batch of agents is a good thing, because you can't send the book again to the same agents. Even if you've edited it and you said, oh well, I sent it to you last year but I've changed a lot of it this time, you can't do it. They've seen the book and they've said no, and that's it. That was your one strike. You can go to them with another book, you can't go back to them with the same book. So that's why I always say send it out in batches. So I would send my book out to a few, get no feedback, send it to the next few, and eventually I'd burn through the whole list and the book was dead in the water. And all I could do was look at it, try and improve on it in the next book and work on it again and again and again, and that was very, very difficult. The other way to get feedback, of course, over the years that I did, was I would go to events. Now there's many online events that you can attend. I'd listen to feedback there, listen to panels from authors about how they've done it, all of their interviews, their path to publication, what they learned from working with their editors, and see if any of those things you can apply to your book. There are guidebooks now online. I've written an ebook about publishing that might give you some tips, that has my covering letter written. All these kind of things can help you so that before you just send it out to everyone, you don't kind of fall in some of the same pit traps that I did and many others over the years, because we didn't have the feedback like you have today. It's a lot better situation than it used to be. The other thing to do now, I would suggest, is to join a writing group of some kind, in person or obviously probably online, for people who write the same kind of genre as you, and do some exchanges of the first 5 chapters or whatever the submission package is that you're required to send off. And give feedback on them and they give feedback on you, kind of quid pro quo thing. And that can really help because they know the genre if they're writing something similar to you. They know the kind of tropes. They know what to expect from the book in the letter that you've given to them to read before they read the book. And this is really helpful because if you write a crime novel and give it to a fantasy author to then read it, that's not really their cup of tea. They're going to comment on things that aren't helpful at all. So get feedback from people that you know, trusted sources, friends, family, but then strangers if you can, or trusted friends at least within a writing community. Make the book the best version possible and then send it out, and I think you stand a much better chance than I had back in the day when there was no feedback on anything that we were doing and we just sent off our submissions blindly.